husband found out that he is not the father of my baby and then decided to ruin my life.
Hey, fellow Redditors. I am Amber, 32, married to Michael, 29. And I wanted to share how my carelessness ruined my perfect marriage with the guy who respected me the most. This post is mostly about self-awareness, so if there is anyone who wants to trash talk me about being a bad wife or how I could have done something like this, then please, this is not for you. I am here to reflect on my mistakes and hopefully provide some insight for others who may be struggling in their own relationships. I had always been an ambitious person since I was a kid. It had always been my dream to work for TVG, which was the biggest and oldest name in the industry. I worked hard on my grades to make sure my GPA was impeccable and aced the placement interviews to make sure that I landed my dream job. All the hard work paid off when I got into TVG, my dream company. I made a promise to myself that I will become a manager within the next 2 years. I knew that achieving this goal would require dedication, perseverance, and continuous learning. With each passing day at TVG, I immersed myself in the work, seeking opportunities to take on new responsibilities and showcase my skills. As I progressed in my career, I remained focused on my goal of becoming a manager in 2 years, constantly seeking feedback and mentorship to further develop my leadership abilities. I met Michael through my family. He had recently moved to our neighborhood and went to the same church. My parents couldn't stop talking about him since the one time he helped them with their car. I wasn't very interested in meeting him, but just to get my parents off my back, I decided to meet him once and get it done with. He was handsome and charming. He made me laugh, and it did not feel forced to spend time with him. We didn't date much, 1, due to my hectic schedule, and 2, he believed that dating a lot ruins the excitement in a relationship, so we got married just 4 months after knowing each other. I know this might be shocking for many people, but frankly, marriage was not a part of my plan and not my priority. I made myself very clear to Michael about my goals and ambitions in life. He was very happy and proud of me for everything I had achieved so far, and everything I would be achieving in the future. I felt that it was not too bad to be married after all. We both agreed that our marriage would not hinder our individual growth and personal development. We made a conscious effort to support each other's dreams and aspirations, ensuring that we continued to pursue our goals while being happily married. This mutual understanding and respect for each other's ambitions made our decision to get married feel even more right. Michael was into construction, which required him to have flexible work hours and also travel to different locations. This was perfect for me, as I did not have to worry about being a dutiful wife and make time for Michael. My marriage gave me the freedom I wanted, so I guess it wasn't that bad. It felt more like having a flatmate, as Michael would come and go depending on his schedule. I was aiming for a promotion, so I was making sure I did everything to get it. Richard was one of my teammates who would help and motivate me when things went south. I was happy to have at least one person rooting for me. He understood my difficulties and frustrations. I could talk to him about what and how I felt, and he would get it. The equation I had with Richard was very different from that of Michael. I had to prepare a presentation for my final interview, so I asked Richard if he could help me with it. We obviously couldn't do it in the office, so I asked him to come home if he had no problem. We went home and were working on the presentation, which took longer than we expected. His wife called him to ask when he would be home, and I spoke to her and apologized for keeping her husband away for so long. I promised her that he will be home soon. We ordered pizza, and we were just reviewing the presentation one last time to make sure everything was right when he dropped the pizza on his pants. Out of habit, I took a napkin and started wiping without realizing it. He held my hand and kissed me. Before I could react, he pulled me closer and started kissing me. With Michael away for too long, I was missing affection, so I started kissing him back. I think the rubbing aroused him, and that is what made him act this way. We made out for 10 minutes and then looked at each other. He told me that he had to go, or else his wife would kill him. I let him go, but kept going back to those 10 minutes again and again in my head. The next day I went to work, but things were awkward between me and Richard. We tried so hard to act normal, but it wasn't easy. We both met at the emergency exit to discuss what to do, but we ended up making out again. After that day, every time we would be alone, we would end up talking less and doing more. It was like an addiction. We couldn't help ourselves being pulled towards each other. We both were married and knew that it was wrong. But as much as we tried to stay away from each other, it was getting more and more difficult as we had to keep working and spending time with each other. We soon gave up the idea of trying to maintain distance and go with the flow. Nobody was being forced into doing anything that we did not agree upon. We both knew that when it would come to choose between marriage and affair, we would always choose our respective spouses instead of this affair. We were never vocal about it, but it was understood that we valued our marriage more than the affair. I had finally been promoted to a team manager. I was very happy and thrilled about it because I had worked very hard and deserved this position. I made sure that my best coworker, Richard, would be a part of the team I would be handling. I couldn't let anyone else have Richard, if you know what I mean. Being a team lead was a different ballgame altogether. It was stressful, tiring, with never-ending complaints about something or the other, and pushing people to complete their work before their deadlines. It made me lose my temper more than I would have liked to. Thank God I had Richard to help me cope with all the stress and chaos I was going through. Not many people were happy with my promotion and secretly prayed for me to fail at handling a team. I was determined to prove all of them wrong and throw it in their face by showing them what I was capable of. Michael was working on a new project for which he had to travel and stay in Detroit for the construction of a new hotel. It was a huge project which would open many avenues for him. He was a little hesitant, but I told him that he should take it up without thinking too much about it. Yes, I was genuinely happy for Michael, but I also knew that Michael being away was an opportunity for me to spend more time with Richard. As soon as Michael left, I called Richard and asked him to meet me at home to discuss a few things about the project we were working on. Of course, we couldn't let his wife doubt that something fishy was going on. His wife did not like me much, as I made him work a lot. Little did she know what kind of work we did. I never cared if she liked me or not, as I was only interested in her husband. I was working on a new project and also banging Richard. I lost track of time, and after 2 months, I realized that I haven't got my period in a while. I quickly bought a pregnancy kit and tested. It turned out to be positive. I could not believe my eyes. How could I have been so careless? My mind raced with thoughts of how this could impact my life and the lives of those around me. I knew I had to make some difficult decisions and face the consequences of my actions. It was time to have a serious conversation with Richard and figure out what our next steps would be. I asked Richard to meet me at our usual cafe to discuss something important. I did not want to disclose this news over the call. I met him and broke the news to me. He immediately denied and told that the baby couldn't be his. It could be mine and Mikkel's, and how could I be so sure that it was his? I laughed at his refusal and told him that Michael had been away for more than a month and I missed my period for 2 months. There was a 100% chance that the baby was his and not Michael's. He said that it would not be possible as we were very careful. He asked me if I missed having my contraceptives, which I did more than a few times. He said that me not having the pills was not his fault. He took every precaution necessary to not get me pregnant, so I couldn't blame him for it. He said that he had a wife, and if she got to know about it, then he would be ruined. I couldn't believe the way he was pushing the blame on me when he was equally responsible for the mess we were in. I told him not to worry, as I myself did not want any more problems, so I would anyway abort the baby. I went home and booked myself an appointment for the next week with a gynecologist. I was so tired with all the running around and the mental stress that I fell asleep. I woke up the next day and saw Michael beside me. I smiled at him and went back to sleep. I got up late as it was a Saturday. I just wanted to rest at home and do nothing. I saw that Michael was already up and preparing lunch for us. I went to the washroom to freshen up and noticed that the bin was not emptied last night. I was throwing away the tissues when I noticed the pregnancy kit in the bin showing 2 red lines very clearly. I knew that I had to hide it before Michael saw it. I wasn't sure if he already noticed it, but thought of taking my chances. He might not have seen it, otherwise he would have woken me up and asked me about it. I got ready and went to the kitchen where Michael was almost done cooking. He smiled at me, which made me relax a little. He might not have noticed or realized what it was. We both sat and started eating. Michael was definitely a better cook than me. Michael asked me if there was something that I wanted to share, so I started telling him about my new project and how stressful it has been so far. He just smiled and reacted to everything I was saying. After lunch, we went to our room, and Michael told me that he had something interesting to show me. He asked me to close my eyes and wait. By this time, I was damn sure that he thought there was nothing wrong with our marriage. I went ahead and closed my eyes in anticipation of a surprise gift. He asked me to extend my hand with my eyes closed and put something in it. I knew it was high time he gifted me something. I opened my eyes and saw the used pregnancy kit in my palm. I looked at him in shock, and he folded his hands and asked me if I liked his surprise, which was more of a shock for him. Michael had found the pregnancy kit in the dustbin and acted so innocent for the past 1 hour. He was already aware that he had been away for a project for more than a month, so there was no way the baby was his. He confronted me about it, and initially I was very adamant that it was his. He would come home over weekends, so that explains it. He said that he was very sure that we would never have sex for at least 3 months. There was always something or the other going on. He kept asking me to come clean about it. I argued with him that he was a very untrustworthy husband. Why could he not believe me and be happy that we were going to be parents? Michael reminded me that he had had a vasectomy due to some complications, so there was no way he could make me or anyone pregnant for that matter. This was a very crucial piece of information that slipped out of my mind at the wrong moment. Of course, he couldn't have kids, and that was one of the main reasons I married him. I knew that he would never pester me to have kids, so I could completely focus on my career. He immediately knew that I was sleeping around with someone else during the time he wasn't in the city. After a series of back and forth, I couldn't lie anymore and slipped that it was Richard's. All hell broke loose after that. Michael's face turned red with anger as he demanded an explanation for my betrayal. I couldn't deny the truth any longer, and tearfully admitted that Richard was the father of the baby. Michael asked me to explain to him in detail how it all started and why I hid it from him. He told me that he would have easily divorced me if he knew that I wasn't happy with him. But the truth was that I was having no issues in being married to Michael. I was in fact very happy with Michael, as I could do anything that I wanted, and it did not even feel like I was married. I never thought about it before, but Michael did give me the freedom and space to do things my way. I wasn't even sure why I was having an affair with Richard. Maybe it was just my body wanting a new touch. I told Michael that I was sorry, and I wasn't even sure why I decided to have an affair when I had no issues with him. Maybe I liked Richard as a co-worker, which led to me having an affair with him, imagining what it would be like to get intimate with him. My confession made Michael even more angry that I had no valid reason to have an affair. I could see Michael feeling helpless about the situation. He asked me to stop talking and that he had heard enough. He just left me in the room, took his bag, and left. I didn't even try to stop him, as I myself was confused about the reason for my affair. I knew that it would be best to take some time away from each other so that we could both process what was going on and then come to a conclusion. The next day at work, I received a big bouquet with a big card on it congratulating me on being pregnant. It was anonymous, but I knew that there was only one person who could do that. After about 30 minutes, a big cack was delivered with a note that read, "Congratulations on being a faither to Richard." The expression on both me and Richard's face was enough, and it wasn't difficult for people to add 2 and 2 together. The news spread so rapidly that Richard and I were having a baby after our affair. I was called in by my boss and asked about it. He told me that he would have to report me to the work ethics committee to make sure that the rumors were false. I was very confident that Richard would have my back, so I told him that all of these were false rumors, and someone was trying very hard to defame me. A few days later, Richard was called in by the ethics committee. He was there for almost 4 hours. We were instructed not to contact each other till the case was closed. I waited patiently for any news with regards to my case with the committee. Richard smiled at me when he saw me as an assurance that he had done his part, so I was relieved that at least I would not be losing my job, which was the most important thing in the world to me. I could breathe easily now that all the allegations against me would be cleared very soon. I worked as usual until 2 days later, I was asked to go on a leave of absence till a conclusion could be reached in my case. I wondered what it was all about, but it was protocol, so I decided to comply with it. I did not even think once about any issues that I would have, as Richard would not desert me in the middle of a crisis. Guess I was wrong about it. Richard very cleverly blamed me for workplace sexual abuse. He said that I took advantage of my position and blackmailed him to provide me with sexual favors. I was on the verge of losing my job and getting blacklisted from the entire industry. If I couldn't gather proof, then my professional life would be over. I was so tense about it when I got to know that Richard had done an unexplainable thing. I was packing my bags as Michael wanted me to leave the house, and I myself was feeling too ashamed to live in the same house as him. I was almost done with taking most of the stuff that belonged to me when I saw my phone completely soaked in water. Michael accidentally dropped my phone in the water. I asked Michael what he had done to my phone, but he kept saying that it was a mistake and he did not realize it till it was too late. I did not buy it, but there was nothing else I could say or do. Now I knew that I couldn't retrieve any of the messages exchanged between me and Richard. We just exchanged messages and there were never any pictures, so I had no proof that it was all consensual. I was almost in tears thinking about all the hard work I had put in to get till here to become a manager. It would all be gone just like that. The investigation was completed and I was found guilty of harassing and asking for sexual favors. I appealed to the human resources team, but they denied it, stating that they had a strong testimony that I harassed and overworked people. I told them that there might have been a misunderstanding, and if I could talk to the person, maybe the outcome would be different. They weren't on board with it, but as I had been a very good employee, they gave me an exception. I was asked to come in after 2 days and put my case again with the witness that they would be bringing in. I came all prepared with how it started, and Richard was the one who kissed me first. I went in with confidence, and the witness called in was some random woman who did not even work here. It gave me high hopes to counter her and drop the sexual assault charges against me. She was introduced as Richard's wife. I felt the earth crumble beneath my feet. How could I counter the wife of the man I was sleeping with? Nevertheless, it was not the time to give up now. She played a few recordings where I confirmed that Richard was with me in my house and helping me with work. I could not deny them, as all of it was true. I did talk to her a few times, and she was unhappy about him working even after normal office hours. She had the proof, and I didn't. I defended myself by telling them that Richard was the one who started the affair. His wife defended him by telling that he would come home upset and always complained that I had forced myself on him again. It was my word against the husband and wife, who were trying very hard to make sure I take the fall for the entire affair. As a result, I lost my job and was blacklisted from the industry. Update: I was depleting my finances at a very fast pace. Very soon I would be left with no savings. I knew that this was coming, so I had been staying in a motel for the past 1 month to save money. The divorce case took up a huge chunk of my savings, which left me no option but to be on a budget. I knew that going to court would be useless, as Michael could easily prove that I had an affair and get away with owning everything that we owned together. I wanted to mutually agree for a divorce, but Michael insisted on going to court. I knew that there would be no lawyer who would take up my case, as everything was against me. Plus, I had no money to afford a decent lawyer. I knew that Michael wanted me to suffer, and that was the only reason he wanted to take this divorce to the court. Even though I begged and pleaded with him to settle for a divorce by mutual agreement outside of court, I promised him that I would be demanding no alimony, and he was free to claim anything he wanted from me. But he denied and said he needed a fair trial to find closure. I'm not sure how true it was, but things were definitely not going the way I wished. I aborted the baby as I wasn't sure how I would be able to bring it up without a job or a man in my life. It was not an easy decision, thanks to Michael, who sent my pregnancy test results to my family with a big balloon which read, "Congratulations on becoming grandparents," to embarrass me in front of my family. My parents were staunch Catholics and took adultery as no less than a crime. They stopped picking up my calls and cut me off. After I became a manager, I had very few friends at work that immediately cut ties with me. I basically had no one I could talk to or no one to support me in these difficult times. I'm feeling lonely and have no one I can confide in. My parents have practically disowned me and are even willing to take Michael's side. They have announced that I am a person without faith. They do not want anything to do with me because I have brought shame to their name and reputation. They are the same parents who were very proud of me, as I was the first woman in our family to become a manager in a big corporation. Like they say, when your time is bad, even your shadow leaves your side, and this is exactly what I have been feeling for a couple of days. There is no one who would want to listen to me or sympathize with me. Everywhere I go, I see people looking at me making up stories about me being an unfaithful wife and taking advantage of my naive husband. Sometimes I feel like getting on top of a building and screaming that I'm not a bad person. I just didn't expect things to go this way. The next court hearing was something I was not looking forward to. I was shocked to see Richard being so eager to testify against me in court and mention that I forced him to be intimate with me if he wanted to get ahead in his career. I wondered if this was the same man who kept motivating me and appearing to work harder to get a promotion. I was shocked at his shamelessness, at making himself look like a victim, and not missing any chance of making me look like a monster. Needless to say, I lost the case. Now I am stuck in a shitty motel with no job, no parents, no husband, and basically no one to talk to. I have decided to be a lone warrior and fight my battles alone going forward. I am not writing this post to garner sympathy for myself. This is just something that makes me calm and relaxed. I agree that I committed a sin, so I would appreciate it if no one judges me for what I have done. This is my coping mechanism of putting my thoughts out there, which has helped me get through tough times. Sharing my thoughts and experiences has been therapeutic for me, allowing me to process my emotions and find solace in expressing myself. It's important to have an outlet during challenging periods, and this has been mine. I hope that by sharing my story, others may find comfort or relate to their own struggles. Thank you all for joining me in this tough journey of finding myself. I hope all of you learn from me and do not repeat the mistakes that I made. I cheated on my husband, and he spared no mercy in ruining my life. When I say he had spared no expense in ruining me, I mean it to the truth. My husband didn't even think twice about how this would tell on him or report on our family situation. It was like I had ceased to exist to him once he found out about my cheating mistake. I became nothing to him, and he proceeded to treat me like what I was. For someone that had been married to him for over 7 years, he had sure treated me like a stranger. This was something that could have been solved with therapy and the likes. I mean, we had been in love once upon a time and had been married. Don't you think with this, he should have at least tried to find out what had propelled me to have an affair outside our marriage? At least he owed that to me. I know you all will be sold on decorum on this platform, talk about I owed it to him not to cheat and whatnot, but I'm on here to vent about my husband. Or rather, my ex-husband. He had wiped off my entire savings and taken the house he had gifted me on the day we had gotten married. The darn man hadn't stopped there. He had stripped me of all rights to have access to my son. Who cuts off all access of a mother to her son? My ex-husband, that's who. I had cheated, so what? We should have tried to fix it. I was ready to. I mean, who wakes up and decides to just cheat on their spouse? No one. There had to be a changing factor. And in my case, there had been. There had been a lot. I didn't just wake up one morning and decide to cheat on my husband of 7 years. There had been temptation, and from there several cobwebs, which I would get into definitely. So you all would get to understand it hadn't been totally my fault that I had an affair outside my marriage. Not that I'm seeking anyone's validation on this platform. My life has already been ruined. Ruined terribly, for that matter. You know, I keep on going to sleep and waking up and thinking this would all be a dream. That somehow I had vexed the god of nightmares and not my husband, and he had kept me in this endless loop of nightmares. I had nothing to my name because I had cheated. That was a terrible wake-up call, in my opinion. Retelling this experience just seemed to have a worse effect, by the way. An effect that is now my life because I had fallen for temptation. An effect I was now living because my husband decided to throw me and our darn long marriage to the wind. But in truth, it had all been my fault, no matter how hard I tried to delude myself. I had made the mistakes, more of, and I couldn't fault him for being done with me. I could have told him from the beginning and avoided this whole nightmare. I was a total blob and everything still felt surreal. Well, I'm beginning to get carried away with writing down my thoughts on the matter, without telling y'all how everything had come to play, and how my husband ruined my life. Like I said, the premier cause of the problem had been temptations, which led to a whole lot of cobwebs. These temptations came on as a result of problems my marriage had immediately when we marked our 7th wedding anniversary. Well, that most definitely had been a night to remember. It was the night my husband's ex-wife, first love, decided to waltz back into our lives. Like, you wouldn't believe the power of this woman. She just strolled in, and my husband began panting after her like a thirsty puppy. It was demeaning and downright downgrading, for crying out loud. 7 years, I had been married to this man for 7 years, and one look at his ex-wife, I began to feel small and had my doubts. Then, the downslide of problems began. You see, when I explained to y'all on here that it hadn't truly been my fault, I wasn't lying. After my husband's ex-wife showed, and yes, I knew he had been married before, and no, I didn't know what had caused them to separate. My husband never really talked about his ex-wife or his previous marriage, and he had been taking care of me, so of course I wasn't going to ask. Things went from good to terrible since she showed her face at the party. My husband began staying at the house less, always claiming one work trip or the other lol. There was no way he wasn't distancing himself from me. I thought to myself he had to be cheating on me with her. Wasn't it obvious? But I couldn't do anything about it because, unlike the independent women of today, I had been a housewife who had popped out a son and hosted parties for my husband and his friends. No, I wasn't living in a fairy tale, and I know this will sound too good to be true, but it was my life. My parties became her parties. She took ultimate control of the house. And do you guys want to know what my husband did when I confronted him about his little mistress? Nothing. My husband did absolutely nothing. Heck, if I hadn't spoken up, she would have started living with us. He then began arguing with me over every single thing. Obviously, we argued on occasion. There was no married couple that didn't. But ever since the little witch showed up, it was like I was in an invisible competition with her, and hence the arguing with my husband. What would he prefer to have for dinner? Argue. Was he going on a trip by the weekend? Argue. It became a strain to talk to him, so one day I exploded up on him. I told him exactly what I thought of him and his little witch, and how I knew he was probably cheating on me with her. Because what other reason could she have been back into our lives for? Redditors, you needed to have seen the way my husband combusted on me. It was like I had set off the fireworks and the comparisons began. At the end of the fight, my husband told me if I wasn't satisfied with the way he was treating me with all the money and the houses and the luxury gifts, I shouldn't let the door hit me on the way out. My husband of 7 years, someone I had fallen in love with against all advice, had said that to me. I had literally gone against all warnings because of love and married him. And since I had no one he thought he could say to me. Let me give you all a little introduction on how my husband and I met. My name is Laurel, and I'm 33 years old. My husband's name is Mark, and he's 40 years old. My husband, or should I say my ex-husband? Well, I'll call him my husband till I get to the part of our divorce. My husband owned a law firm, a successful one at that, and I had met him when I had been posted there for my internship. No, I didn't study law. I had studied international relations, but my mother had wanted me to study law, so she dumped me in a law firm as punishment. You know how mothers can be. I wasn't even where the real stuff happened. I had been stuck with the solicitors back then, but I remember I met my husband when he had thrown a workers' retreat. I had badmouthed him in front of everyone, not knowing he was the owner of the law firm, and as a way to make it up to him, I became his coffee fetcher. Cliché, right? Same thing my friends had said. We had started dating a year later after my internship had ended. Luckily, I wasn't employed in the company once I was done with college, unless it would have been an office scandal. As it then, I hadn't known my husband had been married before. I got to find out with the whole of my family when he took us out for dinner and we bumped into her in a restaurant. I mean, how small could the whole of Connecticut be that we had to have ran into her there? The tension at the restaurant that evening had been so thick that even a chainsaw couldn't cut it. Apparently, as I had come to learn, they had only been married for a year and had split for reasons my husband hadn't deemed fit to tell me about. The reasons had to have been something serious because there had been a lot of side eyes and unbridled words. Once my folks had found out that he had been married before, they were strictly against the marriage. In their words, if he couldn't take care of his former wife, then he couldn't take care of me, and I was better off finding someone closer to my age. And I hadn't taken their word of warning. My parents had me cut off because I went ahead with the relationship. After a year of dating, My husband proposed, and true to their words, my parents hadn't shown up for my wedding. I could still remember the shock of not seeing them at my wedding. I had sent them invitations and had kept my fingers crossed for a miracle. But I walked down the aisle by myself with only my friends from college to clap for me. I had done all that because I had loved him. I had gone against my parents' wishes to marry this man, and after 7 years here, he was calmly telling me I could use the door if I didn't like that his ex-wife was back in his life. Can you imagine the dimwit? Why wouldn't I have cheated back? Well, I didn't leave, of course. I didn't leave because he was right. He provided for me the money, the luxury, and the gifts. I couldn't leave him, and I couldn't have left my son either, so I had stayed put. I was frustrated and desperately needed someone to talk to. So when that person came by, I took the opportunity, not knowing I was setting up a landslide for myself. My husband's partner in his law firm, Gary. At first, it was just a simple case of him asking how I was doing and if there was anything he could do to assist me. He had been so kind, so I found myself drifting more and more to him as my husband drifted away from me. My husband could be gone for more than 2 weeks on a business trip. I had wondered what kind of case could make a lawyer be gone for almost a month. I mean, he always had his cases at home base. But ever since the witch had magically appeared, my husband disappeared on various occasions. Funny occasions. And as a woman, I had needs. I needed someone to talk to. My son was barely 4 and still speaking in toddler talk. Like I had said, I hardly had any friends. My husband had been all I had. And a girl had needs, which was then coupled with the loneliness of hardly seeing my husband. The few occasions he came back, it was like I had become invisible. He preferred sleeping in one of the guest rooms rather than to be near my space. He was out like the speed of lightning before daylight cracks, and only came back when it was past midnight. The signs had just been too numerous for me not to jump into conclusions, but instead of calling him out again and have him throw me out for good this time, I turned to his friend, who seemed to be always there to listen. I turned to his friend the first time out of curiosity because I wanted to know what my husband's ex-wife had over my husband. I wanted to know the spell the witch had over my husband. So I had gone and asked my husband's best friend and partner. This was when I found out that my husband's ex-wife was also a partner in their law firm. So it was the 3 of them that ran the firm. No wonder she had such control over him. He needed her. But where had she been for the past 7 years? Why the heck did she think she could waltz in and try to test my marriage? And that foolish man I had married didn't want to do anything about it. This was where my husband's friend stepped in, and I'm sure you all can guess the rest. It started with simple trips to his house to get advice on what I should do about my husband and why I was suddenly invisible to him. Then it progressed to me talking about everything and anything with him and cooking for him. From there, that's how I landed in between the sheets with him. Yep, that's how I started sleeping with my husband's best friend and partner. Like I said earlier, I can't be fully blamed for it. I wasn't getting any attention from my husband's end, and I found where to get the attention. And my willpower crumpled like a crushed flower. Right under my nose, the thing with my husband's best friend and partner turned into an affair, and I couldn't stop. I didn't want to, quite frankly. While my husband was busy going on trips with his ex-wife or whomever, I was warming his best friend's bed with my son in daycare. Life was perfect for me. For a while, I thought I had everything panned out. My husband would never find out, and I could end this thing with his best friend when I wanted to. I was wrong on both counts. Totally wrong. My husband found out. I wondered how it had been like when he found out. His best friend had been the one to break the news to him when I couldn't succumb to his blackmail. Yes, my husband's best friend blackmailed me. I told you all it would only get worse from the moment I decided to cheat on my husband. This was how my perfect life with my affair took a turn. A month after hiding and enjoying an affair with my husband's best friend behind his back, my husband came back and started liking my company again. He even sought me out on all occasions, and the problem with his ex-wife wasn't a problem anymore. It was as if there was a transformation on the last trip he had traveled for, and I began feeling guilty. I had my family back again. I couldn't continue having an affair outside my marriage. It wouldn't bode well for me. So I decided to end the affair. In my head, I had thought it was going to be as simple as just saying it. It had been a phase, and I needed to end it. It was meant to be as simple as that. I had never been more wrong in my life. The man I had once found comfort in turned out to be a nightmare. Literally, you all. He had recorded pictures of our affair that was supposed to be hidden behind closed doors. And when I had gone to end the affair, he had thrown said pictures in my face and told me he was ready to lose the friendship with my husband, but in his own words, was I ready to lose my marriage with my husband? The car that was my life now started its journey downward on the slope of disasters. Yes, this was how my husband's best friend began blackmailing me. It started with little things like a copy of deeds, which I had no idea what he needed to use that for. I mean, I could sacrifice a couple of papers over me losing my marriage. Even though I wasn't in it for love anymore, I wouldn't even have nowhere to start to cater for myself and my child if my husband kicked me out. I didn't know how soon my fear would come to pass. From a couple of papers to keys to some drawers, the tasks to buy my husband's best friend's silence over our affair became harder by the day. The evil man wanted the firm for himself. That's what I had found out, and I couldn't keep giving him easy access to all the hard work and sweat my husband had put in to raise his company. That's when my husband's best friend became my nightmare. The threats tripled from just telling my husband about our affair, but forwarding it to their clients to diminish my husband's reputation to making threats on my son. I had to give him what he wanted. The fear of losing my marriage had conquered all the fear of my husband losing the ownership rights of his firm. Once again, I had never been so wrong and foolish in my life. I made another foolish mistake. I handed him another important document. How had I known I had made a foolish mistake? It came to slap me back in the face when my husband came back from work one day and threw papers of my affair right in my face. Like, how had I been so foolish to not see that coming? I had trusted the devil. I had trusted him to hide a lie when he was the father of lies. The time after my husband threw the pictures in my face had been a blur because he hadn't confronted me yet. He had just left me in the house and hadn't come home not even once. I hadn't known what had been happening in his head or what he was planning to do to me. I just had this dreadful feeling in my head that I was definitely done for, so I decided to start planning how I would sell most of the things he had gotten for me. My eyes had been on the condo he had gotten for me when I had given birth to my son. I could sell that and use the money to move to another city and start a new life for me and my son. I didn't know my husband's plans were going to disrupt mine totally. The fruition of my husband's plans began when he stumbled angrily into the house one evening and flung divorce papers in my face and carried my son out of the house. You remember that downward slope I had said my car, which was my life, was on? Yeah, at this point it had crashed and was tumbling in a non-stop motion. The thing I had feared the most was laughing me in the face while dancing the mamba around me. I deserved it, you all don't need to tell me, but I still had a plan. That's what I had thought. When I went to sell the house, my husband had gotten me to be able to run away once I signed the papers. I was told the house wasn't under my name. I had shown the realtor the deeds in my name, and I was told that wasn't the correct documents to the house. That the document in my hand only